Good morning. Let me share something that might shift how you view growing older on your own. Because what I'm about to discuss isn't something your typical physician mentions at routine appointments, and it's definitely not what mainstream medicine is promoting. If you're a man aged 60 or beyond who lives independently, or if you're concerned about someone in that situation, then what comes next could substantially influence what the remaining years of your life look like. Here's what the research actually shows. According to findings from the National Institute on Aging, senior men over 65 who live independently experience a 45% elevated risk of accelerated physical and mental decline. But here's what's remarkable. That same research uncovered something most people overlook. The men in that demographic who incorporated five distinct behavioral patterns didn't merely eliminate that risk gap. They demonstrated health outcomes that surpassed married men their same age across nearly every measurement: physical strength, cognitive sharpness, heart health, psychological well being, every category. Today, I'm walking you through each of these five practices, arranged from genuinely beneficial to what I regard as the single most transformative thing an older man can do independently. Before we begin our breakdown, I want to mention something because I don't want you to leave early. The first item on this list is something virtually every older man is currently handling incorrectly. Not from carelessness, but because he received outdated guidance, probably from a well-intentioned doctor, perhaps decades earlier. Correcting this could add years of vitality, autonomy, and richness to your remaining time. Stay with me until the end. Before proceeding, I want to ask you something directly. I genuinely read the comments people leave. Tell me right now in the comments what your current age is, and whether you're watching for yourself or for someone important to you. I want to know who's here, because this material exists specifically for you, and your experience strengthens this entire community. I'm Dr. Alan Mandel. I've spent more than 20 years providing medical and surgical care for older adults. I've witnessed what happens when things fall apart, and more importantly, I've seen what optimal aging looks like. That's my aim for every person watching. Before we begin with our main content, I want to introduce something that will complement everything we're discussing today. There's a comprehensive guide called Stand Strong, the doctor's fall-proof method for life after 70. It's designed as a practical system specifically for men and women navigating their later years. It walks you through how to improve your stability, strengthen your lower body, enhance your mobility, and dramatically lower your risk of dangerous falls, all while building the structured routines and daily practices that keep you truly independent. This video touches on some essential ideas, but that guide provides the whole complete framework with step-by-step instructions that honestly can't fit into a single presentation. You can find it through the pinned comment and also in the video description. Thousands of people have already invested in this system because they understand that staying strong requires more than isolated tips. It requires a full, organized approach. Now let's move into our countdown. Starting with number 5, something that catches almost every patient off guard: the substantial and scientifically demonstrated influence of early morning light on the health of aging men. I understand your reaction. Morning light sounds too straightforward for a major health insight. Yet stay with me, because the research reveals something far more intricate than a simple recommendation to spend more time outside. What scientists have learned about men, particularly older men living on their own, is genuinely striking. Researchers at the Salk Q Institute for Biological Studies in California demonstrated that regular morning light exposure, specifically natural outdoor illumination within 90 minutes after waking, fundamentally organizes your circadian rhythm, essentially your body's internal 24-hour timing system. After turning 65, this internal clock deteriorates. It drifts the way an old timepiece does. When your circadian rhythm loses synchronization, subsequent systems cascade downward. Your stress hormone surges at incorrect times. Testosterone generation diminishes. Rest quality worsens. Your systemic inflammation indicators, essentially chemical markers showing aging and sickness within your bloodstream, become elevated. This becomes critically important for solitary men. University College London research demonstrated that older men without partners displayed markedly more disrupted circadian timing compared to men in relationships, mainly because they lacked the natural daily structures that partnership provides. Eating occasions, conversation, repeated activities, these function as circadian stabilizers. When you're on your own, you must design these deliberately. I had a patient I'll call Marcus, 73, formerly worked in electrical contracting from Nashville, Tennessee. Marcus approached me exhausted, emotionally low, describing a sensation of not being himself. His lab results looked normal. His cardiovascular function appeared solid. Yet Marcus hadn't experienced outdoor daylight before mid-morning in years. His routine was coffee indoors, followed by television in dim light for the remainder of his morning. We implemented one modification. Each morning following waking, Marcus began spending 20 minutes on his patio with his beverage. No devices, no screens, simply morning atmosphere. Inside 6 weeks, Marcus described his sleep as better than it had been for 10 years. His stamina increased. His mood shifted upward. The mechanism is clear. Morning illumination suppresses melatonin appropriately, activates the ideal cortisol timing pattern, and triggers a sequence of biochemical processes that boost everything from glucose regulation to testosterone balance throughout waking hours. Here's the actionable guidance. Spend roughly 15 to 20 minutes outside in unfiltered daylight within 90 minutes of waking. Not indoors looking through glass, because windows prevent the specific light frequencies your brain requires. Combine this with morning activity or a walk, and something interesting emerges. Research from Stanford indicates that joining light exposure with morning physical activity amplifies the circadian advantage by approximately 60% compared to either separately. Now to number 4 on our list. This sits at the junction between nutrition and what researchers term anabolic resistance, a concept I need to clarify because it's fundamental to understanding why older men living independently frequently encounter muscle and vitality challenges they can't quite identify. The fundamental situation is this. Beyond roughly 65 years, your muscular tissue becomes progressively unresponsive to dietary protein. Picture a doorway that previously opened freely when protein arrived. That door has become stubborn, partially jammed. You might consume identical protein, as always, yet extract substantially diminished muscle growth benefits. Research from the University of Texas Medical Branch established that men over 70 require approximately 50% greater protein quantity per meal to generate equivalent muscle-building effects as a 30-year-old consuming the identical meal. 50% additional. Yet the heartbreaking reality is most older men actually consume reduced protein than their younger selves, not increased amounts. This occurs because appetite typically decreases, social dining becomes less frequent, and solitary meal preparation feels burdensome. Men without partners experience this challenge particularly. Research from the AP Foundation's Investigation Division revealed that independently, living men ingest roughly 31% lower daily protein compared to men residing with companions or relatives. This protein shortfall represents one of the main contributors to sarcopenia, which means age-related muscle deterioration, an ailment affecting roughly 45% of men past 80 that directly causes falls, bone breaks, independence loss, and memory problems. Let me tell you about David, 78, previously coached football at the secondary level from Shreveport, Louisiana. David had gradually diminished, not dramatically, but steadily. His clothing fit differently now. He struggled opening containers he previously handled easily. Ascending stairs left him gasping. David figured this was just typical aging. It absolutely wasn't. It was preventable. We restructured his nutrition using one straightforward concept: spread protein throughout all 3 meals instead of concentrating it at supper. Research from Clinical Nutrition Journal demonstrated that consistent protein distribution of roughly 30 to 40 grams across 3 eating occasions provides substantially superior results against anabolic resistance compared to identical total quantities consumed in 1 or 2 meals. David incorporated this approach. Eggs combined with yogurt at breakfast, a poultry or fish-centered lunch, lean protein or fatty fish at supper. After 16 weeks, his hand strength improved substantially. He reopened containers without difficulty. Most significantly, he told me he felt fundamentally himself again. Here's the synergy component that matters. Consistently pair protein-containing meals with modest portions of omega-3 sources. Think salmon, small fish varieties, or a reliable supplement. Research from Washington University School of Medicine confirmed that omega-3 fats directly combat anabolic resistance, essentially unsticking that resistant door. These fats improve your body's protein responsiveness by minimizing the chronic low-grade irritation that dampens muscle signaling in aging structures. All research sources appear in the description. We've arrived at number 3. And I want to pause briefly with a direct request. If this presentation is delivering genuine value, if you've had at minimum one moment thinking, "I wasn't aware of that," take just 2 seconds now and tap the like button. Cost you nothing yet, substantially helps us reach additional older men requiring this information. If you haven't followed this channel yet, please do. Our content focuses specifically on men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Click follow so you don't miss future videos. Number 3 addresses something I personally view as one of the most overlooked breakthroughs in aging science: the structural composition of sleep in older men. Here's what most people, including numerous physicians, fundamentally misunderstand. After 65, your sleep undergoes dramatic changes, not merely duration but composition. Your brain transitions through multiple sleep categories across the night: shallow sleep, restorative sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. Restorative sleep represents where genuine biological recovery transpires. Development hormone releases happen during restorative sleep. Tissue renewal happens during restorative sleep. Information consolidation happens during restorative sleep. Now, here's the concerning discovery. Analysis from Harvard Medical School's Sleep Research Department found that men lose somewhere between 60 and 70% of restorative sleep capacity between ages 40 and 70. By 75, numerous men experience virtually zero meaningful restorative sleep, despite believing they obtained 8 full hours. Include the reality of solitary living. The National Sleep Foundation's data indicates that independently living men document markedly poorer sleep quality compared to partnered men. Partially due to decreased safety perceptions, partially from unpredictable schedules, and partially from elevated evening stress hormones without social regulation. Consequences extend significantly past fatigue. Persistent restorative sleep deficiency in older men correlates with a 36% greater likelihood of Alzheimer's disease, based on research from the University of California, Berkeley. This happens because during restorative sleep, your brain initiates its cleansing mechanism called the glymphatic process, working like a biological washing system operating overnight. Inadequate restorative sleep permits dangerous proteins, including beta amyloid and tau, specifically the proteins associated with Alzheimer's, to accumulate inside brain tissue. I had a patient called Norman, 70 years old, previously worked as an accountant from Salem, Oregon. Norman believed he slept soundly, technically accurate. He fell asleep without difficulty and remained asleep for 7 hours. When we conducted comprehensive sleep examination, Norman's restorative sleep was essentially non-existent. He cycled through shallow sleep throughout the evening and woke fatigued, unclear, and emotionally withdrawn. We executed 3 targeted interventions. Initially, we repositioned his evening meal 2 hours earlier. Investigation indicates consuming food within 3 hours of sleep commencement notably interferes with sleep structure. Secondly, we adjusted his sleeping room temperature to somewhere between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Research from the University of South Australia verified this specific range optimizes slow-wave restorative sleep, specifically in older men. Thirdly, we introduced a 30-minute morning walking practice post-breakfast to reinforce circadian regulation, which markedly improves evening sleep restoration. Inside 8 weeks, Norman described the transformation as remarkable. His thinking was keener. He awakened prepared to participate in his day instead of merely experiencing it. For sleep enhancement, magnesium glycinate administered approximately 45 minutes before bedtime at approximately 300 to 400 milligrams shows demonstrated improvement in both sleep initiation and restorative sleep length based on clinical research from Iran's Institute of Medical Sciences. It operates by triggering parasympathetic activation. Think switching from stressed and vigilant to protected and prepared for recovery. When matched with dependable sleep and wake schedules, continuously maintained, the cumulative outcome becomes substantial. We're now at position number 2, and I should remind you that I signaled this one early because it's the topic nearly every older man mishandles with significant consequences. Number 2 involves muscle-building exercise, but completely differently from what you're probably envisioning, and specifically concerning a process called fast-twitch fiber depletion that virtually no mainstream discussion of men over 65 properly explains. Here's the fundamental biology. Your muscular fibers encompass roughly 2 primary groups. Slow-twitch fibers manage prolonged activities, walking, standing, maintaining body position. Fast-twitch fibers control quickness, forceful movements, and the explosive strength needed to stabilize yourself during a stumble, lift yourself after a fall, transport groceries, embrace a young relative. Here's the brutal biological reality your physician probably hasn't mentioned. Past age 60, men shed fast-twitch fibers at roughly triple the rate of slow-twitch fibers. Research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden demonstrated that by 75, certain men have eliminated as much as 40% of their fast-twitch fiber capacity entirely. These fibers aren't merely weakening, they're vanishing. This clarifies why falls become so damaging for older men. It's not simply a balance issue, it's a rapid response power issue. During a stumble, fast-twitch fibers respond in fractions of a second to reposition you. Without those fibers, correction simply can't happen rapidly enough. Conventional recommendations: increase walking, maintain activity, successfully preserve slow-twitch fibers, yet barely benefit fast-twitch preservation. What actually works, per McMaster University research in Ontario, published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, involves strength work that integrates deliberate movement quickness, meaning you move or push with purposeful intensity regardless of weight. The neurological signals triggered during this movement specifically stimulate and maintain fast-twitch fiber function in ways that gradual casual movement cannot accomplish. Let me describe Robert, 69, previously served in the armed forces from Boulder, Colorado. Robert maintained excellent fitness standards. He walked 4 miles each single day without exception. Yet Robert experienced a stumble on slightly uneven concrete and it frightened him significantly. He consulted me. Robert's cardiovascular conditioning was outstanding. His fast twitch capacity wasn't. We incorporated 2 weekly sessions of bodyweight resistance work. Nothing extreme, nothing heavy, but concentrating on deliberate, forceful execution. Rapid standing from squatting position, climbing up a low platform, forceful wall movements. Within 90 days, Robert's reactive stability, evaluated using a straightforward balance disruption assessment in my office, had improved substantially. He expressed feeling anchored differently, like solid earth supported him once again. The practical recommendation consists of minimum 2 weekly resistance sessions, not 5, not 7. 2 represents sufficient when executed correctly. Concentrate on fundamental movements engaging several joints. Squatting motions, pressing motions, pulling motions. Execute the exertion section, standing, pushing, lifting, with purposeful velocity and engagement. Supplement with the protein strategy from number 4. Research from MRI University in the Netherlands revealed that ingesting 30 to 40 grams of superior protein within 1 to 2 hours following muscle work produces superior muscle fiber recovery and maintenance in men over 65. No other timing window compares. These 2 approaches form your most powerful biological combination. And finally, number 1. The singular, most astounding, most significant, most thoroughly validated reality about older men living independently, and the factor that mainstream medical discussion isn't addressing with warranted emphasis. Number 1 involves the neurobiology of meaningful relationships, and specifically the substantial, quantifiable physiological destruction that persistent isolation inflicts on the aging male body at the molecular level. I want to emphasize this isn't a conversation about emotional states. I'm not recommending emotional regulation. This represents measurable, quantifiable molecular biology and ranks among the most profound discoveries in contemporary aging research. A significant meta-analytical study published in POS Medicine, examining data from beyond 3 million research participants across worldwide locations, identified that social disconnect and perceived isolation increased premature death likelihood by 26%, an impact comparable to consuming 15 cigarettes daily, 15 cigarettes every single day. That's what persistent isolation does. But understanding the specific mechanism is critical, because understanding this biology clarifies why this ranks number 1 and why intervention is both urgent and concrete. When the brain of an older man without active relationships perceives chronic separation, it triggers a sequence of gene switching that neuroscientists at the University of Chicago, specifically neuroscientist Dr. John Cicciopo, termed the loneliness transcript 2. This terminology means isolation fundamentally changes which genetic instructions become activated versus deactivated. It strengthens genetic instructions linked to systemic irritation and immune dysfunction. It weakens genetic instructions linked to disease-fighting capability and cellular restoration. Think of it this way. Isolation signals your genetic management system to ready itself for danger and trauma, instead of upkeep and advancement. Your physiology transfers from restoration mode to protection mode, remaining there chronically, consuming resources and hastening molecular aging. Isolation specifically accelerates chromosome terminus reduction. Chromosome termini function as protective sheaths on DNA molecule endpoints, comparable to plastic sheaths protecting shoelace ends. Their dimension represents one of the best indicators of molecular aging. Research from Brigham Young University indicated that isolated older men demonstrated chromosome terminus reduction, equivalent to 5 to 8 additional years of molecular aging relative to socially integrated men of equivalent age. 5 to 8 surplus years of cellular aging. That's what loneliness expenditure looks like at your genetic foundation. Here emerges a special challenge for solitary men. Research from the University of Michigan Social Research Center demonstrated that older men, in contrast to older women, typically maintain substantially reduced interpersonal relationships following career completion and relationship endings. Because men's past patterns emphasized their companions as their fundamental relationship architects, women characteristically preserve broader independent peer groups. Investigation repeatedly reveals that men identify their partners as their sole intimate confidant. Following death, separation, or distance, numerous men enter a form of interpersonal deprivation, lacking even language to articulate or address the situation. I want to tell you about a patient named Kevin, 77 years old, previously worked as an engineer from Memphis, Tennessee. Kevin's wife passed 4 years prior to our initial meeting. His adult children lived in separate regions. Kevin possessed sharp thinking, strong independence, and confidence in self-reliance. Yet Kevin had averaged under 2 substantial personal interactions weekly for multiple years. His irritation indicators, specifically molecules like IL-6, chemical markers indicating chronic systemic irritation within bloodstream, measured at concentrations typically observed in men a decade his senior. His sleep suffered, his appetite diminished. He'd shed 13 pounds unintentionally. He insisted everything was fine. It wasn't. Rather than pharmaceutical treatment, we recommended intentional social engagement, like a medication with careful dosing. Kevin participated in a Thursday gathering at a regional hardware establishment, offering complimentary carpentry guidance for retired individuals. Woodworking wasn't the objective. Meaningful involvement was. Within half a year, Kevin had recovered 8 of the 13 pounds as muscle tissue. His irritation markers had decreased substantially, and he shared something I continually reflect upon. He said, "Doctor, I couldn't remember what meaning felt like." The practical recommendation isn't fuzzy. Research appearing in the American Journal of Public Health identifies the crucial baseline for meaningful connection that shields from isolation's molecular effects. Minimum of between 3 to 5 substantive individual connections weekly, whether in person, phone, or video conversation. Reach out to individuals who genuinely recognize you and truthfully care about your response when they inquire about your well-being. Quantity matters, spacing matters. A single extended dialogue per week delivers less protection than 5 smaller exchanges distributed across the week, because your nervous system requires consistent confirmation of relational protection to manage the systemic irritation cascade. This integrates with every preceding element. Connection manages stress response, enhancing your circadian balance from point 5. It elevates appetite and changes protein consumption into meaningful shared experience, strengthening number 4. It reduces elevated evening stress reactions that damage sleep structure, reinforcing number 3. It motivates and encourages the muscle strengthening work from point 2. Connection isn't merely one health consideration alongside others. It represents the fundamental biological structure underpinning all remaining health factors. If this discussion offers exclusively one meaningful idea, remember this: your bonds aren't separate from your wellness. They embody your wellness, appearing in your molecular code, circulating through your blood, written into your DNA dimension. I want to finish with words directed uniquely at you. Physician to patient, individual to individual. Existing without a household partner doesn't necessitate disadvantage. It doesn't require decline, separation, or invisibility. The research discussed today isn't a sentence. It's a framework. It illustrates where challenges exist so you can navigate with consciousness and intent. All 5 dimensions we examined today are changeable. Starting the next morning: early day natural light, distributed protein consumption, protected recovery periods, explosive muscle activation, meaningful human connection. Men I have observed thriving into their 80s and 90s aren't distinguished by perfect biology or substantial resources or top-tier medical providers. They're distinguished by deciding deliberately that their existence justified commitment, that transformation remained feasible, that each morning carried cellular possibility. You remain capable of rest transformation. You remain capable of strength development. You remain capable of reaching outward when isolation has lengthened. It's never late. I've confirmed this repeatedly throughout my professional experience, and I'm conveying it with the authority of my clinical knowledge. The coming chapters remain completely improvable. If this content offered something meaningful, one discovery that astonished you, one adjustment you'll implement, one individual you'll contact, please follow this channel if not already subscribed. We're here consistently providing evidence-grounded material built specifically for aging adults, embracing authentic aging rather than prescribed decline. Add your voice in the comments section. Communicate your age. Share which of these 5 discoveries